should be down at Tom's place right now, and that's up in front of you, and I can see all of your smiling faces, but all I get is Mr. Gruber. So I can't tell if there's one person, nobody, or 100 people watching. But we're gonna.
You got 29 now, John.
29. Wow. I don't know if there's that many people that knew how to log on. I didn't. 2 weeks ago, I never even heard of Zoom. I don't know how to operate it. Now here I am. Here we are. And that's apparently our new normal way of doing business for the near future, at least. Anyway, we're going to make an attempt to do this demo through Zoom. And bear with me, bear with all of us, because I don't know how well it's going to work. Hopefully it won't bore you to death, and you'll click off. I won't know if you do or not, because I can't really see who's logged on and who's not. But like I said, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to. I think the plan was to unmute and ask, or use the chat feature, whichever one you want to do, and we'll see if we can get the answer to you. So if you do have a question, or you missed something, or I did something wrong, don't hesitate to call me out on it. I don't profess to know it all, but we're going to try to make my version of the Glen Lucas Irish platter. Glenn did it here both times that he's been here. Was it 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, the last time he was here. Well, hang on there, I can tell you when it was. 2018, I guess it was. Anyway, this is the one that Glenn did. We're going to make an attempt to do one it's going to be close to this, hopefully. But I'm going to show you a few different options that you can do to make it your own version. One question I always thought myself, well, what is a plate? What is a platter? What's a dish? What's a bowl? What's the difference is? So if you're looking at this one, your way you get it turned here. Is that a plate or platter or bowl? How about this one? Is this a plate, platter, or a bowl, or dish, or this one? Now this is probably kind of big to be a plate or a bowl, unless you know most of you know who Jethro Bodine is. At least you're old enough to probably know who that was. So, other than that, you're right. No matter what you thought about any one of them, they're all dishes. But platter is generally thought of, or at least to me, it's generally thought of as being something that's larger in size. And I think by definition, platter is something that you serve multiple people from, food of some sort. Usually, I think the definition was of low liquid consistency. A plate being smaller, plate is something that generally would each of us use and sitting at the dinner table and taking something off the platter and put it on your plate. But plates can also be used as platters. So there really is no wrong answer, no matter which one you thought of. All right, first thing we're going to start off with here, starting off with a 2-inch or 8/4 and cherry blank. This is about 13 inches in diameter. And if I had my preference, I'd probably, making a platter, I'd rather have a 6/4. Start off with about 1.5 inches instead of 2 inch, but 2 inches will do it. it's not a big deal. So anyway, I'm going to start off with going to make this round. All I did was, and I am using a faceplate, something 2-inch thick. You could probably get by with using it on a screw chuck or a screw center. But if you did, then you probably want to bring up the tailstock, and on something this size on the faceplate, I don't worry about needing the tailstock for support. Did I do something different?
No, I did.
Oh,
I changed your view.
I just noticed that I was looking at something different. But anyway, I'm gonna start off now. I got mounted on the faceplate, and this is pretty far off actually. Sometimes I get them a lot closer and don't have a whole lot to make round, but we're gonna make it round. And when I'm working on a bowl, I don't worry about the making it round part first. So just round it off as we do. But we're gonna make a little detail on the edge of the bowl or edge of the blade here. So I want it round so that I can make some marks, and we'll go ahead and get started. First thing I'm gonna do is I'll be starting. You notice I'm going from left side to right side, and it's going to leave a lot of tear out on this side, but I don't really care because all that's going to go away here momentarily anyway. So let me do that, and then I'll turn it off, and we can I'll discuss it a little bit in more detail in just a second here. This is brown, almost there. So just a little bit. All right, we're round at this point, and check something. We got just a slight bit of wobble. So normally what I would do at this point, if I had a lot more than what it is, you can't really see it here, but I would come up to the edge here and look down the side here and try to make a mark. You can probably see that mark hopefully. And then what I will do is when I turn it around, I will take off the top side here when we turn it around down to that mark. It'll be round. Otherwise, if I don't, then we're going to end up with a rim that is thick on one side and narrow on the other. So we're going to take care of that. And it's 2 inches thick. We got plenty of room to take as much off as we want. The other thing that I'm going to do now is I'll put it right here. Is I'm going to measure over about 8 millimeters or a little, about 3/16 actually of an inch, and that's going to be the rim. We'll put another little mark on there to. All right, so now then we're going to move it around here, and we'll work on the bottom side and get ready to put a foot on it, or in this case, we're going to do a recess. And this robust lathe is a nice lathe, but it's a lot different than my Powermatic. So everything's in the wrong place. The foot's in the way over here for me to get in the right place to do the. All right, so
You can remove the headstock.
no, it's fine. It's not that much. All right, so before you get started, all I'm going to do is try to clean up this front face here. This is going to be the top, or the bottom side. We're going to cut a recess here in the middle over here, but I want to clean it up here first, and then we'll make some marks and get started. Okay, almost flat, and I get a little bit of a spot here. And while I'm thinking about it, as I was pulling this across, the only part of the, if you can, where do I go to the?
Well, let me go to the overhead again, and you can put it up on top. There, try that.
Okay, if you can see just a little bit to the left side of the point here, that's where all your cutting is going to be done. And you want to do it right on center line. So not the tool rest at center line, but you want the tool rest position at, so if you was to pull a mark across here and then check that against with a pencil, you'd see whether or not you're at the right height or not. The other thing is, if you're cutting right at this point, or running this just to the left of that point, if you come all the way back here to this wing, it's going to catch pretty bad, and you probably ain't going to want to do it again.
Put that right in the palm of your hand while you're looking at it. How about your naked hand? See if it shows up better color-wise. No, well, you could have switched hands.
And that's with the flute open.
Okay.
And this, where's that little red marker? One thing while I'm thinking about it, you know, the little word of caution on your get your turning smock on like this. I turned this one into a nice pullover smock instead of a zip up. I was gluing some super glue, some cracks in a bowl, and I had it kind of sitting down here in my lap, not realizing the glue was coming through all the way through, and it super glued my zipper together, and so it's now a slip over, not a zip up like I usually do. All right. Oh, yeah. I was looking for my red one, but that's okay. Maybe I don't know if you can see this.
Let me down maybe again, number one.
You can see that blue mark. Does that show up? Yeah. It's this left part. That's the part you want is going to be doing all the cutting. And you want to keep it not straight on, but drop just a hair, clean all this up. When we get into some of the other cuts, then we'll talk about how we're going to drop the dual handle to the lower spot and to get a cleaner cut.
Yeah.
All right, so now I've got this fairly flat, and getting a Charlie horse in my leg. Hopefully it'll go away. So what we're going to do now is determine the base of the platter. Most everybody, and nobody's recommends the same thing. Everywhere from 50% to 80%. And on a smaller platter like this, yeah, 60% range is probably good. If you're on one of the larger ones here, we'll talk about, or I'll show you a little bit later, probably get up closer to 80%. But that way, what you don't want it to do is rock back and forth when you put something on it. So on this one, this size, I've done so many of these that I already know that about 2 inches is what I'm going to come in. And I'm going to mark about 2 inches. This is not rocket science, so if it's close to it, fine. If not, then that's fine too. You see? All right, so all I'm going to do is make a circle. Hopefully one not quite that wide. So that's going to be the width of the platter. So, I mean, the base is going to be from here to here. Now then, we're going to cut a recess. And for that, I'm going to go get my chuck. And for this, you want to go as big a chuck as what's reasonable, or what I think is reasonable for the size of platter. For this one, I'm using a stronghold chuck with the number 3 jaws, and you want the jaws almost completely closed. Let's see. Okay. All I'm doing is adjusting my dividers to the width, and you notice it's almost in a closed position. I don't want it completely closed because I want to be able to get my calipers in there to measure the thickness a little bit later. So I want a little bit of an opening, but not a lot. So the other thing is, now without seeing the center, it's kind of hard to judge. Let me mark the center real quick so you can see it. So now, when I lay my dividers up here, I know you all know, do not touch the right side against the turning wood, or you will never do it again. Or if you do it, you won't do it again. So let's just make a little mark and mark off the area that we want to haul out. My first mark was slightly wide, so I just made another one on the inside of it. I've used these so many times that I wish they made a pencil sharpener that would sharpen these, because it's so dull. I have to push really, really hard anymore just to make a mark. All right, so now I am going to take the 1/4 inch. It's a 1/4 inch badan, but any kind of a tool would work fine for this. You can even use a negative scraper. Want something that's going to make, I'm using dovetail jaws, so want something that's going to go in and make a slight angle to match your dovetail. I did read on One Way's website the other day and I was looking at trying to figure out what the angle was on those jaws, because I know on Vic Market 77 degrees. But on One Way, I think it's a little bit larger. I think it's closer to 80. But anyway, I was reading on there, and it said normally the depth would go shoot for is about 1/8 of an inch. You don't want to go too deep. You can go too deep, and it's not as as won't hold as well as what it does at the shallower depths. I think it said 7/32 was the maximum depth you should use, which is about 1/4 of an inch. So somewhere between 1/8, no more than 1/4. 1/8 is all it really needs when it goes to expand out. And then it also said that you really don't, because it's so shallow, when it opens up, you don't really have to have much of a taper, if any, to make it, give it its maximum holding power. So, which I didn't know that. I always thought that you really needed to get that dovetail angle. And I'd still put a little bit on, but I don't worry about trying to get as much as I used to. All right, I'm going to turn this on. We're going to hollow it out real quick. All right, one thing I want to mention here now, and I want you to get ready to go to that oops slide that I was talking about. Not yet, but anyway. Right here in the center, kind of hard to see it on the angle that we have here. I've got about 1/8 of an inch depth here in the recess. And you want to, when you go to hollow that or finish taking the rest of this off, you want to make sure that you got a kind of a dome at the center and definitely not a recess. Because if you do, can you go to that slide real quick, John? Is that hard to do?
We'll figure it out here. Let's see. Screen share.
This is, we're trying to get to a shot here that I can show you what very easy to do, especially when, not that one.
Okay, let me see if I can step through those.
I'm looking for a picture that that I went through the bottom. And we may or may not get to it.
Okay.
Right there. So right there in the center, on that particular, I don't know, bowl, platter, whatever you want to call that one, it's kind of deep for a platter. But I figured out after it was too late that I had, when I took this center part out of this recess, that I'd actually went into I had gone back, or had actually hollowed it out rather than making a dome. So if you want to make it, if you make it a dome, then when you go to hollow out the inside, you can continue that curve and not worry as much about going through the bottom like I did on this one.
Right.
Did I mess you up, right?
No. That's how you repair it, though.
Oh, yeah, okay. We'll go ahead and talk about that one while we're on there. This was a African mahogany platter. Started out to be a platter. Doing the basket weave illusion that I do a lot of. And I just spent, 2 days doing the backside, which you can't see here. And it is all colored in like I do most of my platters and different designs. Anyway, I spent all that time on the backside, and when I got to the front side to start hollowing it out, I went through the bottom, and I thought, oh, I might have said a word or two that is not appropriate, but after I finished it off, I almost threw it across the garage, but didn't quite. I decided, what am I going to do? I don't want to, all this time, I got to figure out something. So what I did was I ended up expanding the hole, making it larger, and I cut an insert, and I took it down to the engraver and had him engrave the Roman numerals on it. and turn it into a clock. So, and you know, don't throw all of your screw ups away, because you might think about it for a little while, and you might be able to come up with a way to salvage it and make it something. And now I tell everybody it's hanging on the wall just above my easy chair, and I just tell everybody that, yeah, that's the way I intended it. So, and nobody knows the difference. So let's get back to this. I'm gonna go ahead and make a little dome shape out of the center part of this recess right now. All right. One thing I want to point out too, most of you probably already know it, but when they get to the center, you got to really slow down and don't push it, and don't just jam that. I was intended to go ahead and jam it through it, and show you what happens. And what it's going to do is it's just going to tear that very center part out. It's just going to pull the grains out, and you're going to have a little divot. It's small, and it doesn't look that much present until you go to put a finish on it. When you put the finish on, it stands out like a sore thumb. So when you get to the center, whether it's the inside or outside, either one, you get right to the center, and we'll talk about it more when we go hollow it out for the front. Take your time and just let the wood cut itself, and don't get in a hurry. And that's the biggest thing is don't get in a big hurry doing that. I think it'll be just fine. And it takes a whole bunch of sanding to get rid of that divot. And I don't know about you, but I sure don't like sand that much. All right, what I'm doing now is I'm just going to put a little slight taper on this using the skew chisel, and I'll just go ahead and have it at an angle. It's only an eighth of an inch deep, so you're not going to get much, but you get just a hair. Okay, see what I'm doing. Okay. One thing I would recommend is before you take this off of the face plate, since we are trying to keep it as closed as possible, just lay it in there, and actually, I mean, I could make it work, but I want it to keep at least this much opening in the chuck. So I'm going to take just a hair more off of that side before I take it off. If I take it off of the faceplate and turn it around now, I'm kind of committed to using it that way anyway. So, but now I can still have the faceplate on. So we'll make it just a hair bigger. The other thing I'll point out too is don't look at the point where you're trying to push the tool into the wood, because unless you got better light than what I've got here right now, you can't see it. So look on the other side as you're going in. You can tell whether or not you're deep enough or not. So Anyway, got just a hair more I need to take out. Yeah, I've got it done now. So now it should be so that goes in there pretty easy. Oh yeah. And yet it's not going to expand too much. You're much better off keeping your jaws as closed as possible and then expand rather than taking a smaller chuck and widen them out, and you'll get much better holding power keeping as big a chuck and almost fully closed. All right, so now we're going to start to make the outside, and we're going to try to make it into a Roman ogee shape or a sine wave. Anyway, we're going to, Glen Lucas and Jimmy Clues both go about a different process to get that ogee or sine wave, whichever one you call it. Glen's, I think, it's quicker, I think, but Jimmy's, and if we have time, depending on how far along we get, I'll do another one. I'll show you what the process that Jimmy uses. But the design element on plates, platters, or anything, bowls, is the most important thing. And pretty much everybody knows that a nice gentle curve is much more pleasing to look at and feel than straight lines. But it seems like it's a hard thing to do. You can see it, but to make your hands do what your brain wants to do is not always the easiest. So this way is almost foolproof. If you remember, we got the mark up here on top. That's the bottom part of the rim, and then we've got the mark here, which is the outside mark of where the base is. So what I'm going to do is make a straight line between that mark here and this mark here to start with. And so if you'll line up your tool rest so that it's kind of a parallel line, it will just nibble away and we'll get that straight line hopefully. I don't want to leave the line. You notice here we got a lot of torn grain right here, but at this point I really don't care because that's certainly not our final cut. So now we've got the pretty much the straight line. It's a little bit of a curve, but not much. So now we're going to make it into a ogee. So to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to put a mark, and you can just eyeball it, about halfway between the edge of the foot and the top edge or the bottom edge of the rim. We're going to mark about halfway in the middle of it. All right, so now what we're going to do is on this top half, we're going to start to make the top part of the OG. On the bottom half here, we're going to make the bottom part is kind of a curve this direction, where the top part is a curve this direction. So, and then when we're done, we're going to stay between the lines to start with. And then when we're finished, go to do our finish cut, then we're going to do a continuous cut from the top all the way to the bottom. But at first, we're just going to do the top half, then the bottom half. And now work on the bottom part. At this point, I'm going to go past that line because I don't want the rim to be as thick as the 8 millimeters or that I made a mark on earlier. So we're going to go beyond the mark just here. I still got a high spot here in the middle between the two sides. So we're going to blend that all together here shortly. Not very careful on the one. Okay, so now then, I'm going to start a cut to the top, take this little hump out of the middle here, and finish off at the bottom. Kind of hard for you to see, but we still got a little bit of a tear out up here, and I'm going to go to a price tool and the 45-degree angle, half-inch gallon to make this last cut to hopefully get a little bit better finish than what we have right now.
Sure, John.
Uh-huh.
That would show, no, it doesn't. I
Oh,
would say if it would show the, no. Okay.
yeah, the curves are subtle. They're not huge, but they're there. They're not a, it's not a straight line. So that's not bad. We can sand the rest of this out pretty easily. Now, if I was at home, I'd just go to the power sander now instead of, but here I'm just going to do a wet sand, and we'll just soak it down with oil and see if we can get it. And then we'll turn it around and do the front. All right. Start off with, since this is John's lathe and not mine, I'll put a little towel down here. That it's just walnut oil, so it's not a big deal. And like I said, what I'm doing is I'm going to use walnut oil, which is what I usually use on most of the finishes on most of my bowls and platters to start with. So does that get more or less?
No, I'm just trying to get the glare off it.
Oh.
See how that can't seem to get the glare off it.
Yeah, for me, it's the glare is good, but
Yeah.
for the camera, it's not.
Yeah.
All right, so all I'm going to do is I'm using walnut oil, and I get mine in gallon jugs from Amy down at Hardware Specialty, and it's not that expensive. The other thing you can use, I use a lot of, is I like Cook's tongue oil to get from Chromacraft, but it's a little harder to get it up here, and it's a little more expensive. But I like it because it has a citrus smell to it, and so it makes the garage smell really nice when I'm finishing something. So the other thing, if you don't want oil all over your hands, you can wear a pair of gloves, the nitro gloves, the throwaway gloves, but they're kind of hard to get by if we get this time of the
Rick is asking a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
He's asking, he says, so at this point you would sand and finish?
I would sand it if I was, it's not going to be finished yet because I'm going to put another coat of oil when we're finishing it. I will sand it at this point. Like I said, if I'm at home, I would dry sand this because I've got a vacuum right here, and I don't want to do that here. But the next best thing is doing it wet, and by doing it wet, I mean use the same finish that I will put on to at the end, but I'll put it onto as Mr. Gruber has a. Oops. I just have one for this. Actually, we don't even need it, but it comes off pretty easily. So the first thing I'll do is just soak the whole thing down and with walnut oil, and this is the same thing that I will use to finish it off to start with, or when I get done. So whatever oil, or I guess it'd have to be an oil, otherwise it wouldn't be much of a lubricant. But I put a liberal amount on here, and I'm not going to worry too much about the inside because when I finish something, I turn it around and I take this foot off, or not really a foot, but this recess. I come in here and just kind of slowly take it away and make it something where you can't really tell what I used to hold the thing to start with. This must be really dry because it's really soaking up the the oil. So anyway, I'm starting off with 150 grit sandpaper, and you want to make sure you use a cloth back sandpaper and not a paper back. So the paper is just going to tear on you. Now you'll notice that if you can see it on the bottom of it here, there's just a paste. Where's the speed? I'm going to slow it down just a little bit to sand. There is such a thing as going too fast while you're sanding, and sandpaper will just kind of skip over everything and won't really do its thing. A lot of times too, I'll hold my right hand with the left hand. It just helps help steady it. As I said, on this part, if you're going to leave when you're finishing up with it on, with this recess on there, and that's fine if you do. A lot of people do it, and there's nothing really wrong with it. I just, and I'll show you here in a little bit how I finish mine off, but it's just a preference. And if you do, then make sure you sand it really good right now while you're at this stage. Otherwise, I'll come back. I'll wait for probably tomorrow, and I'll put this back on when I leave at home, and I'll take this foot off, or the recess off, and then I'll power sand the center part, and then I put a few designs on there that I'll show you in a minute.
Tom has a question.
Go ahead.
He wants to know if you ever use sanding sealer.
About what?
Sanding what?
Sanding sealer?
Sanding.
Oh, I don't on this page. If we were coloring the rim, I would use a sanding sealer here because there's pores going through here to the top. And if I was putting a colored rim on there and I put a color on it, and I didn't put some sort of a sealer, the oil is not going to completely seal it. But if I was going to color the rim, I definitely would put a sanding sealer on there at this point, or before I did this. And then sand it again, and then put another coat of sealer on before I turn it around and do the other side. But at this point, on these, most of these, I do not put a sanding sealer on. I mean, there's nothing wrong with doing it. Let's check this off. Actually, not too bad to finish already, and it's just 150 grit all we use. One thing nice about cherry, it's easy to work with. Any other questions while we're this exciting part of sanding? Everybody asleep, or is everybody gone home? Well,
Nobody's.
I guess you don't have to go home. You're already home.
There are no questions in chat.
Okay.
John, what do you look for in the grain for determining the top versus bottom of the bowl before you start the process?
Good question. Cherry is not a lot of grain. Strange things in the grain pattern on cherry is not that prevalent. If you get into something like ash or even maple, what you want to look for is if you see a thicker grain on one side of the one side of the blank than the other. Getting oil in my eyes from not having my shield down. If you got the blank here, let me find one that where's the other blank?
There's one right here.
Oh, that's
Cover them up.
okay. Where am I on this one here?
And let me go to number 2. There you go.
All right. What I would look for, and I think there's some glare on here, I don't know, you can't really see it, but if I was looking at this pattern and I liked the pattern on this side better than I did this side, then I would put this side as the up side. I would put my either my screw chuck or my base plate on the side that you want showing, because if you turn it around and you start digging in to that grain, you're going to see it better than if you went the other side and you would kind of just cut it away and you'd never see it. But if I have answered the question, I think your question was how do you determine which side? If I see a pattern that I like better on one side or the other, then I will turn the pattern I want to the upside, or make the top of the bowl, or where you put your face plate on. The other thing is sometimes you'll get a blank that has a kind of a bad corner. I would, unless there's something really wrong, I would make that your bottom side, put your face plate. Let's say this side was all, I should have brought a piece that was like that, but if this part was kind of rolled over, it had a kind of a knot or something right here, I'd put my face plate on this side. Yeah, here we go. This is a good example of you see this section right here. I would definitely put my face plate on the good side because that's going to be your rim. If you try to make your rim here, you're going to have to cut this blank all the way down to get below this bad spot on it. So this part we're going to cut away just naturally. You're going to cut this part away anyway. So when you're done with it, you're never going to know that was there to start with. Okay, does that answer your question?
We do have a few other questions when you're done with this current question.
Okay, go ahead.
Someone wants to know if you have to special order the wood for your blank.
No, what I do is I win the hardware. I get almost all of my blank material or blanks from Hardware Specialty, and it's not already cut into big sizes. They're in usually 10 or 12 foot long lengths. I'll go in and tell Sherry that I want some 10 inch wide, 12 inch wide, whatever I want. 8/4, 6/4, 4/4. Everybody knows what 8/4, 6/4, 4/4 is, I assume. If not, 8/4 is 2 inch, 6/4 would be 1.5 inches, and 4/4 is 1 inch. And they're not a true inch, 1.5 and 2 inches anyway, but they're closer to it than what it is in the big box stores when you get dimension lumber. 2x4 is not 2x4, it's 1.5 inches by 3.5 inches. So all of the material I get comes in 10 or 12 foot lengths, and then I put it on my chop saw and I cut them up into squares. So basically cut the length the same as the width. That'll give you the most the most blanks out of that piece that you can get. And I take a square, or not a square, but a straight edge ruler. I've got one at home that's just like this one, only it's 2 feet long. And I marked it to side or corner to corner and mark your center. And then I use get my sandpaper off the floor. I use a compass like this. I like this one because it's easier to operate than the great big ones. I've had a lot of 16-inch, even up to 20-inch stuff now, and I can do that on this. I'd have to have an awfully large set of compasses to get that big. So this one, all I do is adjust it. If I need something bigger than what this piece is, it's just a half-inch dowel rod. So I take these pieces off, put it on the longer piece, and you can make it any size circle you want. So I just stick this in the middle where the cross is that I've made the center. Pull this out to touch one side, and then make your circle. That's all there is to it. So then I go to the bandsaw and cut it hopefully round. You've seen this one we started, it had quite a bit of wobble. So I didn't get it perfectly, either didn't get it perfectly cut round, or I didn't get the faceplate screwed on in the exact center. So I'm going to try to do as close to the center as you can. That way you can, you start out with a 12-inch platter, you hopefully get an 11.5-inch platter out of it when you're done. That's generally the, I'll usually lose at least a 1/2 inch by the time I cut it in a circle, but that's how I get my own blanks. I don't buy. We don't have a good place up here in Alaska to buy blanks, and it's so expensive to order them from down south. So that's how I get my blanks. Anything else real quick before I finish? I got one more.
Yep, there are a couple of questions.
Okay.
Somebody wants to know how you are cleaning your sandpaper.
How I'm cleaning the sandpaper while I'm doing it wet? Is that the question?
Well, the question is, how are you cleaning your sandpaper?
Okay, I'm not cleaning it at all, actually, when it's wet. That's the nice thing about it. I call it, when I say wet, I'm saying dipped in oil like I've had here. When it's wet, it won't clog the sandpaper up like it does when you're going dry. It just does, and that's what that paste. If you saw that paste coming off of the edge of my sandpaper, I don't know if you can see that. Can you see that when
I saw it here, but I don't know if it was visible online.
Okay, well, I got one more grit to do here, and we'll see if we can get the camera set up to where you can see right off of the end of the sandpaper here. You should be able to see a little build up and fall away, and all it is sawdust that's saturated with oil, and it's just coming off the end of it. But by being wet, it won't clog it up, so you don't have to worry too much about it. Sandpaper lasts a long time when you're using it wet like this.
Thank you. Do you ever glue 2 boards together to make a larger platter?
Yes, I do. I haven't done it that much. It's just a lot of work to laminate, either make them wider or make them thicker. Either way.
You see all the gluing you did on this one?
Yeah, I wish.
All the finger joints?
That's actually a butcher block.
Oh, come on, John.
A butcher block piece of, but you could do the same thing. I could have taken all these pieces of maple and glued them up and made different colors. And I have done that. I don't have any samples here to show you what I've done, but But yes, I do glue it up. You want to be very careful. Make sure you use, if you're doing plates and bowls, make sure you use a water
Tide bond?
what's that?
Tide bond?
Yeah, use a Type On, and then the green bottle. It's a water resistant glue that is made for outdoors. So if you're doing that, is assuming that the plates that get used, I would make sure you used a glue that was meant for exterior use or for around wet environment. Do you have any more questions, Joanne?
John, we may want to remind the viewers that Hardware Specialties was kind enough to restock the wood that the club ordered for the now canceled symposium. I guess there was some nice 8-4 and 12-4 cherry.
Okay, it's for sale, you mean?
I believe so.
Okay. What, I assume that's coming from Amy. So I don't know if you're on or not, Amy, but I think what they're trying to say is that we had ordered a lot of stock with the intention of cutting them into blanks similar to this, or for whatever other purpose it was going to be for. And since we didn't have the symposium, Amy was kind enough to take it back, or else we didn't pick it up, one or the other. Anyway, she's still got it for sale. So if you guys are interested and you have the ability to, they won't cut it into blanks for you down there, but it's not that difficult. Heck, you can even use a chainsaw and cut it up into smaller pieces. I've done that before. So give Amy a call and help her out and try to pick up all of that wood that we didn't use because of the cancellation of the symposium itself. Okay. Let me.
You need some eye drops, Sean?
No, I'm fine. I'm going to do, I got one more grid here. I'm going to do 320. I've already done 150 and 240. And then actually a pretty good finish on it right now. But I'll do one more and then put a little bit on it. And hopefully you can see, look for that piece that's going to come off of the end of the sandpaper. I'm going to put my I don't know. And you start to see it build up here on the end of it. All of this. And there's the paper. There's not much, hardly any build up on the paper itself. So paper lasts a long time when you're doing wet sanding. The other thing is, take your time. Don't leave it in one place, obviously, just like any other time, because if you're pushing too hard, it's going to get further on the fingers anyway. But this is all the better here. It's not, I don't really feel any heat on the fingers at all, and this is not that thick of a sandpaper. So these are all still good enough, and we'll save that for the inside when we get ready to do that part. There's another question I can answer real quick while I'm getting set up. All I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to get some paper towel here and white down the backside of this platter, just to get some of the, there's not much on it, but there's a little bit residue on there. Yeah, you can't see it, but John can look at it here for you, and it's not, there's, I don't really see any torn grain or anything on it, and all I've done was started with 150 and went through 320. Yeah. Okay, so you heard it. You heard it, folks. It's not just me telling you.
That's not a story. It looks good.
All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this off real quick, and if I can figure out where the, usually I brought my big pliers there, but the other thing is, when this one's not too heavy or too big. If you got a great big piece on here, when you're taking this back off, don't try to unscrew it and hold on to it like this, because inevitably it's going to come off when you least expect it. And I have done it before. Fortunately, it didn't really do any damage to the piece, but it could. So the easiest way is, once you get it started, is I just really look here in my belly. I got plenty of lighting there, so I'll just manually turn my hand. So then when it comes off, you don't lose it. So I'll get my assistant here to take the screws out, and it's going to make some noise here in a second. So, or he's going in the other room, so it's not so bad. But one thing I do want to tell you, or recommend, do not use sheetrock screws to screw your faceplate to the platter. No matter whether it's platter or any other blind, don't use sheetrock screws. Use a good high quality. What I use is square head. Probably can't see it, but those are square head screws, and they're about an inch, inch and a quarter long. You got to be careful about you damage mine.
Yeah, I probably screwed it up for you.
Hey, John,
Yes.
Amy just wanted to reiterate, like you had said, that we can ask for wide boards, but they're not always available. And
Yeah.
she said the club ordered way in advance of the symposium, so her supplier collected some really nice cherry for
Yeah, that's one thing about, I will say about Amy and Terry down there, that when you order something and you have a specific size that you want, I would plan on a minimum of a month lead time. And when I was doing the symposium, I was trying to get, we had a symposium in January. I was trying to get an order to them in before Thanksgiving, because with the holidays and everything, trying to get something up here, it's not that easy. So what you should do is, if you want a specific size, is you go in and tell Terry or Zach, either one, that you want 6/4 cherry, and you want at least 12 inches wide. And they may or may not be able to get it for you. They'll have to go to their supplier and find out if it's available. And no matter what the species or what the size is, if it's anything less than 10 inches, there's probably no problem. When you get stuff over 10 inches, and I rarely do anything smaller than 10 inches anymore, but so when I tell them, I said, Terry, if you can get me 2 sticks, at least 14 inches wide, 2 inches thick, and then 10 or 12 feet long. It's generally in the ballpark and the length that they can get. So they can't always get what you want, but they're pretty darn good at it. So give them a shout and do it. If you want it, if you got a specific timeline, then do it well ahead of time. Hopefully that'll answer your question. Or I assume that was a comment from Amy. So I'm just going to turn this around now and put it on the chuck. Now, remember that recess is not very deep. It's only about 1/8 of an inch deep. So you got to make sure that that's on there good. Now, do not sit here and hold it like this and try to expand your jaws into it, because invariably you're going to hold that out just a hair and it's not going to seat well. So hold it right here in the middle, and then just remember you're expanding now, so you're loosening it. Right, get it snugged up, and then go back and put the last little bit of torque to it. All right, so now hopefully it's not going to wobble much. That was really good. Matter of fact, right on. All right, so we clean up this front, and then we'll mark out where the rim is going to be, and then we'll go from there. The other thing is that I started doing a long time ago. I used to watch Bill Bauer turn. I wondered why he always wore a glove. And I've gotten my hand into these edges before, and it's not nice. I'm often looking at something and thinking, well, where'd that blood come from? And I look at my hand, and right there is where it comes from. So when I'm turning now, I've almost always got a leather glove on this left hand, because usually if this thing is running in this hand, your hand actually touches it, it's going to touch the leather first, and you're going to feel it and pull it away before you get any kind of damage to your hand. All right, so I'm going to go back to the 5/8. Now, those of you out there that haven't taken or been in any of my sharpening classes, you'll notice that 5/8 gouge, I have a red tape on here. My 1/2 inch gouge, I have a green tape. And all that is just to remind me that I know right off the bat, the red handle, or the red tape is a 55-degree bevel. The green tape is a 45-degree bevel. And then when I need to go to the sharpening, sharpen it, I've got 2 jigs, one with a red tape on it, one with a green tape, and each one is set up for the 55 or 45-degree bevel. This is something that Glen Lucas does. He calls the green one is GL5 and the red one is GL4. So I just thought that was a really neat idea, so I kind of adopted that, and it makes it so much easier. I don't have to worry about, well, like most of my 1/2 inch gouges are 45-degree bevels anyway, and in the 55 I put on the 5/8. The other thing I want to mention too is, if you didn't already know it, the British and the English don't do everything, or British and the Americans don't do anything the same. This particular gouge I've got right here is a Robert Sorby tool. It came from England, and they call this a 1/2 inch bowl gouge. because they measure the width of the flute. So they use a 5/8 bar and cut a half-inch flute in it, and they call it a half-inch bowl gouge. Americans, we got a big difference. So we say, no, we're going to go by the bar stock, which is 5/8 bar stock, same as the half-inch gouge from England, but we call it 5/8. So if you order something in the catalog and not knowing that, you're going to get, you order a half-inch gouge, and you get it back, and if you get them and you look at them and think, well, that looks like the same thing. Well, they are, but they're a half-inch in the way the English grade it or size it, but they're 5/8 as the American size it. So keep that in mind when you go to order your materials. Canada, I'm not sure what one way is different anyway. And I do have some one-way tools, but not too many. But I think they do the same as Americans. Must be a North American continent thing, because I believe their half-inch is half-inch bar stock and not half-inch in the flute. Anyway, just keep that in mind. So what we're going to do now is I'm just going to do the pull cut. And you notice that so far I haven't done a push cut at all. You don't really have to. The pull cut is much faster. And when you get to the final cut, I didn't mention it, but if you'll drop your tool handle down, and if you can imagine this bevel at about a 45-degree angle to the wood that you're coming up to, that's about the right. And there again, you're just cutting on that one section. So if I was to draw a line here and a 45-degree line, when I pull it down there, my tool is going to be just about that position. So when you pull them across here, you're doing what they call a shear cut and not scraping like you would be if you was just up here level and pulling it across. All you're really doing is scraping. I could take my screw chisel here and let it across here and do the exact same thing. But by dropping that handle, and the farther you go, the sheerer the angle, the better. You can't take a lot of wood off, but you can get some pretty nice finishing cuts, just like we did on this side, and I didn't push cut at all. So the other thing is that when you're doing that, keep in mind of the position of your handles. It's just like that banjo handle. If I was going to do that coming across here like this, it was in the way. So be cognizant of that when you're setting up, if you're going to do the full cut.
Let me interrupt, John, just for the hell of it.
Uh-huh.
On the shear cut like that, a lot of times this is going to be in the way.
Right.
You can't drop that down enough,
too far.
because that's that catches there instead of right up there. This tool rest is okay. That doesn't do
Right.
it. When I do on my other tool rest,
Turn it around.
is I'll turn it around, and especially on a bowl,
Right.
you can get that
You can get
down
the
low,
bowl in there.
the bowl in there,
Yeah.
get that low enough, and you don't have that conflict. It's just a
It is. I hadn't even thought about that, but I don't use this on my lathe, so I don't have a problem of that. But it's a good idea. I'm glad I hadn't even thought about it. And anyway, let's go ahead and make this flat across here. And we do low now.
screwed you up, John.
You did, but that's normal. All right, so We're just gonna flatten this off for right now. Okay, we're pretty well flat, and we're down, just took out that line that I'd marked earlier, so the top edge of the, now we're down to a little over 1/8 of an inch on that edge, and we started out at a little over 1/4 inch, so we don't take any more of that off, but we're fairly flat here. We can mark it up to do the rim and go ahead and hollow out the inside. Here again, I think I said it earlier, I already know that I'm going to do for a rim, for 2 inch for the base, I'll do about 2 inch from the outside. For the rim, about 1.25 inches is a good, seems to be a good size. I'll measure in 1.25 inches. All right, so I've got the rim is going to come about that wide. So the rest of it, I've got to hollow out. I mentioned earlier there when we first started about that one platter that I had, or bowl, that I tore out or went through the bottom. And the main reason is when we start hollowing this out, a lot of people will leave too much in the middle and keep going in on the outside and leave like a volcano. And you don't want to do that, or at least not a huge one anyway. It's better off if you try to leave this where it's stepping down and not as much as getting that big volcano where it comes up in the middle like we've all done. So anyway, we're gonna. The other thing is that if you're not used to how big of a bite to take, you can put little marks on here about 1/4 inch apart if you want. I don't do this when I'm at home, but if you want to, the other thing is, and that'll kind of give you an idea of where I'm going to start the next cut. The other thing is, if you slow this way down. The other thing is that when you go to your gouge is going to go to enter this flat surface. A lot of times it'll skate this way, or hardly ever. It doesn't skate to the right very often, but it can. But you'll often skate to the left, and turn this here. And if you'll go in with your flute completely closed, straight up and down, and you're not going to get a skate. If you go into that with it just open slightly, and you touch it, as soon as you touch it, it's going to skate to the left. If you have it open too hard, it's going to skate. It'll skate to your right. If you're too low, it's going to skate left. If you're too high, it's going to skate to the right. So when you're going in, you want to get pretty well level, and I'm a little bit low on my breast, so I'm going to raise it up just a hair. Whoops. Okay, so I'm fairly level, and what I'm going to do is start it in here and then pull back to me, and you want to make sure you get in a position where you can pull it back all the way and get to the center without having to move your feet. Move your feet, you're going to move the way that it cuts. All right, so let's go ahead and the other thing is too, if you want, And it takes time, but if you take your skew chisel, if you're worried about it having a real big problem with it skating on you, just go in there and make little grooves. Then, when you put your tool to it, it's not going to skate on you. You've got some place to go, and it won't skate on you. So, if you're having a hard time skating on you, first thing is try to get your flute work straight up and down, and your tool handle is fairly level. But if you're still having problems, then make that little groove with the skew chisel, and that'll help you out a lot. All right. All right, so now get down to the first 3 or 4 times in. I'll make it all the way to the center. But now we're going to start just stepping it down, and each time we'll stop just slight or shy of that. So the next time you go in there, you've already got them grooves. You don't have to worry about it skating on you. So we're going to get down all the way out to here. Then before we get too much weight out of the center, we're going to take care of the rim and then leave it alone. All right, so we've got it hauled down, and it's sort of stepping down. It's not a volcano like I was talking about, and that's the way you want to try to keep it, because it's so easy to get out here on the edge, or out here in the middle of the side, and pretty soon you're going to be too deep down here to where you've got to come back up. You leave a hump in the middle of your platter, and that doesn't look good at all. So if you do it like this, step down a little bit at a time, and keep measuring. And you guys don't have a set of calipers like this, I would recommend you get them. These are Martel calipers. We were down at there's several of us down at Portland at the AAW symposium. And Woodworkers Emporium was down there, and they had these on sale. This is the small set. And I just ordered the medium set the other few days ago, because I'm doing a lot of really big platters, and these are just not big enough to get to the middle of it. The nice thing about these are the shape of these, especially this end. These are small enough, and this is where I said that it was nice to leave the gap in the your chuck, because these will go in there. It will touch the bottom of your recess, and then give you an accurate measurement. Otherwise, all you're doing is you're you're sitting here looking at the face of the bowl and then think, oh, okay, there's no problem when you got an inch or more to go here. But if we were down to where we wanted to go another eighth of an inch, might be an issue. So these are really handy for this kind of work, where it'll slip in between the chuck jaws and give you an accurate thickness of your what you have left, and hopefully you won't go to the bottom like I did in that picture there. So now we're gonna get ready to go ahead and shape this rim before we take the rest of this out. Otherwise, we'll start to we come back to it after we do all that. We're going to start getting some vibration, and you won't get as good of a cut as you would like. And we're going to put just a little bead on the end of it here. So we're going to work on that at this time. All right, well, the rim is angled in a little bit. It's not flat. Flat rims don't look near as attractive as it is when it's either a curve or angled in, and preferably a little curve on it at the same time. Has a lot better feel. If you hand somebody a platter that has a flat on it, their thumbs are just going to sit there on top. But if you hand them one that has, and if you don't believe me, just do it and don't tell somebody why you're doing it, and watch their thumb. If you hand it to them with a curve on it, that thumb is going to automatically move to the inside. It's just the way we are. It's the way your muscles react to a curve. Is much more inviting than it is a straight line. So keep that in mind. Is that better? Are you trying to get out of my way? Or? Yes,
John,
yes.
somebody would like you to repeat the name of the calipers again that you were just showing.
Martel, M-A-R-T-E-L. I forgot the first name. It's not Irvin, but it's something like that. If you Google Martel, M-A-R-T-E-L, calipers, there's only one place that I know of that even carries them.
Is it Andre?
What's that?
Andre.
Andre?
Andre Martel.
Thank you, Rick Judd.
They're not cheap. I think the medium size, which is the next one up from this, was like $88. But nothing in this business is cheap. So what's another $100 here, $100 there? All right. So now I've got it angled in, and I'm satisfied that angle is okay. So now I'm going to put mark the where the bead is going to be, and usually I will just guess at it, but I'm going to make it about 3/16 of an inch, or a little less, probably about a quarter. We're going to make a tiny mark, and we'll turn the lathe on to. All right, so we're going to make our starter bead right about that point. Now, I could come in here with my bowl gouge.
We can't hear.
All right, there. Is that better? Okay, what I was starting to say was here now I could put my bolt gouge up there, and if I'm really confident that it's not going to skate on me, I could use the bolt gouge. This is one time when I would say, yeah, it's really okay to use your skew chisel at this point, and there we go. And I'm just gonna put a little V groove right up to that line, and give me room to get my gouge in there so I can start a curve.
You doing that just so you don't get your skate?
Yep. I'm doing that so that when I put this gouge in here now, I don't have to worry about it skating across that bead and putting a almost irreparable gouge into your. And we haven't finished that. We haven't made it round, so we could probably take out a little bit, but not a huge amount. So now I'm gonna take it down just a little bit more so we can start to expose the bead.
Yeah.
Stop. All I'm doing there is just trying to clean out that little spot right at the bottom of the bead where it starts to come around and it goes down into the. Just want to make it just slightly lower so it gives you that curve effect on your rim. All right, so now that part's pretty good. Shut it off. Sure. Just got a little mark there, but we're going to take it out and we'll start to round it over and make it into a bead. The other thing is, we can do that. We can make it rounded with using the chisel. I mean the bowl gouge. But it's just as easy to take your scraper. Take your skew chisel. Use it as a scraper. It's kind of like a negative scraper. So we still get a fairly good. Interior is really forgiving to do this. We're just going to use the chisel to start to make it round. Now, be careful and don't go too far without moving your tool rest. So we're going to get this edge around to here, and then we'll move the tool rest to get the bottom part. Now there again, it's hard to see right in here where you're working, but if you look over onto the other side, you can see that profile and tell whether or not you need to go a little bit farther or not. So that's not too bad. We're going to move it a little bit here and work on this part of the bead. That's not too bad. Get just a little bit of some marks here on the inside, so got some marks on the inside of the face here I want to take off, so I'm going to this is an awfully large chisel to get in there for that small spot, but it's got a nice fresh edge on it, so I can take that out. Okay. That took care of all the marks that I wanted to get rid of. So, one thing I want to say, a lot of people would cringe at you if you picked up a scraper to do something like that. But in this particular case, it works just fine. And my feeling on it is that use whatever you're comfortable with. If you'd rather use the bowl gouge, then use the bowl gouge. To me, it's easier to do this. Now, when I take this off the lathe and hand it to you, you don't know whether I use a skew chisel or if I use the bowl gouge or a flat scraper. You can't tell. Only you know. And I don't know about you, but I don't care. I don't care what anybody else thinks about it.
And Jimmy Clue says the bowl gouge doesn't know it's the bowl gouge.
That's right. That's absolutely right. All right, so we're okay on the rim now. We're not going to come back to it at all, but I want to finish this out real quick, sand it, and then you guys can go about your business. I'm sure you all have a lot of things to do today. Places to go, people to see. Oh, wait a minute. You can't do that, I guess. All right. If you got any questions, now would be a good time to type them in. All I'm going to do is go through this fairly quickly and get it down to the bottom or down to the end.
If you're going to use it as a tool, you need to sharpen the edge.
I was going to say, I hope it didn't. Yeah, it didn't do any damage. Is your phone or mine? Oh, mine's off.
It's mailman.
All right, so now this is a definite time when I recommend using your skew chisel. We're down to the point where we gotta start to make the cut in for the middle part of the platter. The last thing now, after you've spent all this time getting your rim nice and your bead okay, the last thing you want is that skating across there and putting marks in it. So use your chisel again and do just like we did at the starting on the bead. But in this case, we're going to start it so you can have a good place for the bow gouge to go into to start your hollowing out in the center. Yeah, I'm going to stop right here. I know there's plenty of thickness in here, but if you were getting down to where you was questionable, use your calipers and go in here and check it. And we're still almost full inch, so we got a lot of material to come out. But you want to check it quite often because when you get, especially when you get down to, and I'm pretty good at judging it down to a little less than a half an inch. But you get after that, you need to check it quite often, and because it's really easy to lose that half inch just in one pass sometimes. So
And make a clock.
make a clock. Opportunity for design change. What happened there is I'm getting in a big hurry and trying to push the gouge into the center, and that's what I was talking about earlier. When you get to the center, that is not moving very fast in there, so it takes it a lot longer to cut than it does when you're out here on the outside. So slow down, take your time in the middle.
Rick Judd had a question on what's your final thickness if you want the bottom.
Probably 4 or 5 millimeters or a quarter of an inch is what I would like to get down to. If it's 3/16, you got a good cut on it, then quit. Don't do that. Don't take that. Well, that's one more cut.
The final cut? The final cut?
Yeah. You just don't want now we're getting down to about a half inch now, and out here on the outside edge, you can't really see it better where my finger is. I'm getting close to that edge, so I don't want to go too much deeper, until I get all this cleaned up and I get an accurate measurement, and then I can decide if I want to go a little bit deeper. This would be a good time when I would normally go to the sharpener and sharpen this, but in order to save time.
Rick has a question.
Go ahead.
He wants to know what final thickness do you shoot for? And then he asks, you are putting your calipers between the chuck jaws, correct?
That's correct. I want to go down to about 1/4 of an inch, maybe a little more, not much less. But yes, I'm going through those chuck jaws, and I'm going to the inside of that recess that we cut earlier. So I'm getting a true measurement of how thick that is. If you just put it on the bottom here, the base, you still got that 1/8 inch recess, and when you start getting down to a 1/4 inch thick or 3/16, 4/16 thickness, you get it, you lose it pretty quick. So, yes, you want to make sure you're measuring inside between the chuck jaws. Yep. Can you see it here now?
I don't know, a little bit.
My hands are in the way.
Something's not right.
Yeah. But yeah, no, that's what's nice about the shape of these, calipers. It's not, if you try to,
There you go.
if you try to go this way, you can't do it because there's no room. Now, the other thing is, for a hollow form, about 4 or 5 inches deep, this would work fine to go in right here. So you have a small hollow form. This type of caliper works great. And you can use it from either side, and they're both pretty darn accurate. When it's touching there, I can just, I don't know if I could get a dollar bill through the gap, but it's not much. It's pretty accurate. Hand me one of them with the red one. All I'm doing now is simulating. I just sharpened the tool I was using, because in reality, I should have changed that before I even started on the front side of the platter. All right, before we finish that, I want to check on the thickness one more time. And we're about 1/2 inch right now, so I got plenty of room there to take a little bit
Hard to
more.
hear you, John.
Say again?
I think it's hard to hear. Okay, I think when you had your shield down, it's hard to
I
hear
was
you.
what I do is checking it one more time at about a half an inch right now. So I've got plenty of room to take a few more passes to get a good finish. So in order to do that, I'm going to actually go back to the half-inch gouge, the green one, and take this last few cuts. I've got this is the good. I've got some greens there, but I'm going to check the depth one more time. Yeah, I still got quite a bit, so we'll take another pass with this, and then we'll clean it up with the negative break scraper. This is the point right there, is that by taking it slow, there's no that little divot, little tiny divot. A lot of times you get there. If you push them, your gouge too fast, and the shape is good. I've still got a couple little ridges. I'm getting down to where, yeah, I've still got at least 3/8 of an inch. And I could take the gouge and get it a little cleaner. But I'm going to show you what else you can do if you're not confident with your ability with the bowl gouge. Is this particular scraper I've got used to be a skew chisel, but I really kind of made it into a negative break scraper. And I think everybody knows pretty much the difference between negative break and a skew chisel is. But so all I'm going to do is I'm going to use it like I would a scraper. I'm going to keep it under my arm, finger on top, and slightly down. I can get by, since it's a negative rake, and I can drop the handle a little bit. And sometimes dropping the handle will give you a little cleaner cut. And you just have to see it as you're going through it. You can drop the handle slightly on the skew chisel because it's already grounded at an angle. So even dropping it down, you're still going downhill when it hits the wood. So what you don't want to do is go far enough where this is going with it turned up, because you're going to get a catch and probably scare the poop right out of you. All right, so let's clean this up a little bit with the scraper. I can't feel the grooves when I get that plastic glove on. And when you feel it with your fingers, don't go real slow, because if you go real slow, your fingers are just going to up and over the little valleys and ridges, and you won't really feel it. So you want to move your hand fairly, not like that, across it. And then if there is some ridges there, you can feel it. And my recommendation is that if you have a little ridge, let's say it was right here, I don't, but if we did, I would put a little mark on the high point, and then I'd put a little mark on the two low points. Because once you decide where it is, when you reach for your tool and go back to it, you figure out where it is. So then when you go back to it, concentrate between those two lines, and don't just start going all the way across. Unless, in this case, I had several of them, so I wanted to. So I do have little ridges out here that I didn't see until now. So I'm going to see if I might get a little bit of spooling from the vibration, and we'll see if we can take those out. I think we got it there, but there again, I couldn't tell if I was getting it all by looking at where I'm cutting, and I wasn't even looking at this. I was looking over here on this side and looking for that little ridge, or in this case, a little valley, for it to disappear. And when it disappeared, that's when it stopped. So don't just eyeball this. I didn't have the light in the right spot, so I couldn't see. But I could see that side, so I got just a little bit more, and then we're going to go and sand it. If you got any questions, go ahead and type them in now, and I'll get to them here while I'm sanding. One thing I like about the profile on this scraper is that's almost always the profile I'll end up with on these platters. So when I stick it in there, it's almost the exact size to fit, and I don't have to worry about trying to turn it to get to everything. So it really works out good. All right, we're going to go ahead and stop playing with the tools, and we're going to go back to sanding. Let me get set up here real quick. Get rid of this. I don't need these anymore. I don't need this. You know, you had a nice clean shop before I come in here. Sorry about that.
Hey, makes you look like I did something.
Yeah, I can just pack up and go home.
Yep.
Okay.
I get virtual cleanup. Remember when that's on the meeting?
What was that?
I get virtual cleanup.
Oh, yeah,
from everybody.
Yeah, you can have all that. All right, so let's put a little more of our oil concoction in here.
Yeah, we still have 27 participants
Oh,
on
right.
now, so we've only lost a couple.
Everybody got bored, or else they're bored and they don't have anything else to do. That's probably it. All right, so once again, they're going to give a nice liberal coat of oil in here.
Do you use anything other than walnut oil on any of your bowls?
I do, like I said, I use tung oil sometimes and mineral oil. Mineral oil is the easiest. Everybody, it kind of gets a bad rap because it's a derivative of petroleum product. But mineral oil, almost all of us is at the age it would. If you remember years ago when we rode bicycles without helmets and we were drink in the garden hose and that kind of thing. We did all those things and we were perfect okay. Well, that was the laxity back then. So,
but basically, you put any oil product on after you've done
not
this.
any oil. You don't use any of the olive oils.
Well, after you've done this, I mean, as far as using your other finishing oils.
I try to use, at this point, I'll use whatever oil I'm going to put on for a finished coat.
Okay, so you use tung oil for the sanding as well?
If I do it, it's rare that usually when I use tung oil, I'm at home. So I'm power sanding there and I don't have any finish on it, so I'm free to do whatever I want.
Okay.
But I wouldn't use walnut oil here. Walnut oil and mineral oil probably work fine, but and even tung oil probably is not gonna. I don't know if there's any kind of interaction between the two or not. So I just try to use whatever finish I'm going to use. Use that one for the lubricant. All right, so. You can see the buildup now. As you go, you'll start to get the buildup of the paste, but the sandpaper itself is still clean. The key at sanding like this, especially, is knowing when to quit. And I can't really tell you. It's just something that you have to do and experiment and there's no point, at some point anyway, there's no point in sitting here and doing it. You just keep wearing off wood because you're not gaining anything. One thing about with the using oil as lubricant, you can't really see the scratches because you're not getting as many scratches on this as you are when you're dry sanding, but you can't see it on dry sanding and you can see everything that you're doing. Here it's more of just a feeling more than anything else. And we're almost done out there, guys, so you're getting bored to death. I guess we've done for 2 hours, haven't we? All right, I'm just going to go ahead and stop right there. I'd probably sand it just a little bit longer, but I want to cover a couple of things before we go. And that's not too bad. I'm pleased with it. That's, like I said, at this point, if I was at home, I would take this off and turn it around and take any evidence away. In this particular case, it's doing a recess, so I would just taper them edges down so you couldn't see the
When you turn that around and vacuum check it, do you see any evidence that the oil is being sucked through?
Yes, you will. That is one of the bad things about vacuum chucks is that even on dry stuff, you will see it will suck even dry. It'll suck moisture out of it, and you'll see a ring around it. Just leave it alone, and it'll dry up and go away. But yeah, it would. So anyway, that's the finished product. I don't know, I guess you're still off at this camera over here, aren't you?
Yeah, tripod. You want the head on?
No,
Okay.
that's fine.
Let's go head on, see what you look like. Nope, that's the wrong one. Well, that shows pretty nice.
Yeah, there. Put this out and get it over in the. Oh, yeah, there's pretty decent shape to it. I'm pleased with it.
So you used a skew chisel for a beading tool.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, the parting tools, they're actually called beading tools. Beading tools, batons, parting tools, that's their actual name. So that's what they were originally designed for, was to make a bead with these. So hardly anybody makes a bead with them, right? But you could, and it's not, and that's, I think it's pretty good to bead on.
Oh, that's great. Oh. No, that's a really nice bead. Yeah.
And there again, no push cutting at all on any of this.
Well, didn't you in the center, when you cleaned up the center, weren't you doing some push cut?
Well, yeah, I guess when you push cutting for the inside of it, we did. I forgot about that, but I guess we did. That was not a correct statement.
Kind of a show on some of these.
Yeah, well, I brought some other stuff with me. Like I said, I've literally done hundreds of these platters in different sizes, shapes, and everything else. So here's, by the way, here's the one from Glen Lucas that Glen made. And I don't think it's that much different than mine. So anyway, like I said, I've done so many of them that I get bored, and I'm looking to do different things. So this happens to be a little one out of plate, bowl, platter, whatever you want to call it. I'm not sure. This one I did carve some feet in the bottom of it, just to have something different to do. This is one out of red oak, and I don't recommend turning red oak. It's a great wood, but and it's pretty, but all of these have walnut oil on them. But if you run your hands across here, you can feel the soft and hard woods, because when you're sanding, it's sanding all this out. even worse than what ash does. So this is a red oak platter on the back. I burn it and then put a little gold cream in it. This is one I was just playing with. It's just popular little bowl, I guess, or platter plate, whatever you call it. And I undercut it and then made just did some burning photography work on the outside. Speaking of biography work, this one I did quite a while ago actually, but this one is one that I did. I just started burning away. Got tired of making this one happens to have a little bead on the inside of the rim instead of on the outside. This one John mentioned, or held this up before. This is one made out of butcher block. This one got a little bit of a texture. I used a texturing tool on the outside and made a little rim out of it. And it's also got a turquoise inlay in the rim. This one, it looks, I had to get my needle and thread out. If you can see that stitching right across here. I had to get my needle and thread and sew up the crack.
Hold that. We'll put right to your chest. Let me see if I can zoom in on it. There you go.
Okay, it's right here. And all I did was, it was a crack in the wood. And what I did was I filled it with super glue and then took my burning tool and burn a line across it and then little cross hatches. And it makes it look like a stitched up piece of wood. Same thing here. This is this is the style that Jimmy Clues goes. He does the opposite way. Instead of up like this, he goes down and over up and up. It's hard to explain, but there's a little bit of difference, and both ways are acceptable. I just believe that the easiest way to get it lens is doing it that way. So this is another one. I just put a little V groove, a couple of V grooves around the edge just to highlight it. The backside, again, I textured a little ring and put a couple of V grooves in it. The other thing I will mention, I don't know how many of you out there sell your products, but I've sold quite a few pieces, and I have a number on mine. It's by Dapol, which is what my grandkids call me, and most people know me by Dapol no more than John, but anyway, I sign it by Dapol, and then there's a number, and this one is number 1966, and that's not the year of 1966. That was the 1966 one that I've done. Now I haven't done 1900. I started numbering back in sometime in 2017. I started putting numbers, and I started at 1500. So since 2017, I've done almost 500. I think I'm at 1976 or 7 right now. So what I'm starting to say was, if you put the year in which you made it, if you're giving it as a gift, that's great. Put the year. But if you're making them to sell them, I wouldn't recommend putting the year on there, because people are funny about picking up something that says 2019 and it's 2020, and they don't want it because it's old. Well, it don't make any difference in this stuff, but people like that. The other thing, this is a new design of dinnerware that I've started. It's called the diet plate. So you can put all the food on this plate that you want and guaranteed to lose weight. So it's just getting bored, sitting around and cut this fairly thin. It's about 3 or 4 millimeters. And then I cut out all of these holes and sanded it off. And you spend a lot more time in it than what you could ever sell it for. But it was fun to do. There's another useless one out of a poplar platter. And then I just drilled some holes and used my little Dremel tool and oblong some. And then I actually put this up to a oscillating sander and made the irregular edge on it, make it look kind of like a natural edge. And it's got feet on the bottom of it too. One thing I want to mention, I got a couple more real quick, but this one, a lot of times when you go down there and you get a big piece of wood, and the end piece usually often has cracks in them or splits. And if they're not too bad, you can fill them with super glue. Now, I'm not going to sit here and recommend that everybody do that because you really got to make sure you've done a good job of gluing them together. But this happened to be a piece off of really wide, I think it was 14 or 15 inch wide piece of 2 inch thick cherry that I got. But the very end of it was split up by 6 or 8 inches. And I spent a lot of time, and it isn't worth it, but the amount of time and the amount of glue and time that I put on it. But you can see all of the splits that I filled with turquoise, and you can see it back here. So some of these went all the way through. So I would never recommend that you turn this, but if you can get the stuff glued up safely, you can turn it safely. And I'll guarantee you this bowl will sell before any of the others will sell because people like this. It's funny because I'll take one that I thought was really nice, bowl, platter, plate, and show my wife, she said, it's okay. But I take one in like this, oh, I like that. I think it's just a normal.
When you say you glued that one, John, did you use epoxy on it or?
No, that one I just strictly, what I did was I put blue painter's tape on one side. And actually that's where this gluing this thing together came from. Okay. Was working on that piece. And what I did was put painter's tape because it'll run through. If there's a crack goes all the way through. And I start out with putting thin super glue on it. And once I feel like I've gotten enough to at least stop it, I'll put maybe, if it's thick enough, then I'll put some medium glue in. And then once I get, just before I get to the top, then I'll put some turquoise powder in it and top it off with thin super glue, and then put on the lathe.
Okay, so it's all super glue then.
It's all super glue. Actually, so this rim is actually done with an epoxy, that product called Inlace.
Yeah.
It's an epoxy mix, and then has turquoise or whatever color you can get, black and red and whatever, a ton of colors, and that stuff works well. It's just that it's an epoxy and you have to mix it up. Where super glue, if it's a big void, then I use the bigger stuff. Trudy gave me some platter blanks, or not platter blanks, but bowl blanks a couple of years ago before they left to go back down to Arizona. And they were pretty gnarly, had some big voids in them. And I filled them with that Inlace epoxy, and took a bunch. But they were nice, really nice when they was all done. And then I've been taking all of my birch shavings to the zoo here. And finally one day, the director of the zoo called me up and said, "Hey, what the heck do you do that you get all of these shavings?" Because I just dropped off like 6 of them big garbage bags full of shavings, and that was about the 5th or 6th time that I've done it in the last 2 months. No. So they use birch for the animals. They don't want anything else, but they will take the birch. She wondered what I did. Well, I said I make bowls, and said, "Well, I got one of the zookeepers that would like to have one of your birch bowls." Well, those 4 or 5 that I got from Trudy that had all the voids in them. I mean, I told myself I just happen to have 3 or 4 that are done and ready. I said, "Welcome to take a look at it." So I had some more shavings to take over there, so I took it over, and she had the intention, or told me anyway, that she had the intention of buying one. Well, when she seen all 4 or 5 of them, she took all 5 of them. So people like
The defects.
they like the defects where they've been filled because it's got some character. Anyway, that's another big platter. This is one that I just did recently. Everybody, I think most people know that I've done the basket weave a few times. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out the other day how many different. I mean, I've done them everything from 8 inches to 16 inches. And I don't know, but I'm guessing at least 50. The other thing is, one last one, and then you guys go, is this behemoth is the largest one that I can actually turn on my lathe, and I've got a 20-inch lathe. This is a Madrone burl piece that I've gotten from Amy. I don't know how many years ago it was, but it was back when Bill Bowers and me and Del LaRue all bought a bunch of this stuff, and I had all this one great big piece. It was probably about 5 feet tall and about 2 feet wide and about 2 inches thick. But anyway, and it was fairly stable. By the time I got it on there, it was about 2 inches thick. By the time we got all the bubble taken out of it, it's down to about 1.25 inches. So that was an interesting one to do. It was the biggest one that I've ever done, probably the biggest one I ever will. Last one, and then we'll head out of here. It's that would be a square one. I've sold the heck out of these. I don't really like doing them, but people like those.
They sell well.
They sell well. So anyway, is there any other questions, Joanne?
No, there aren't any other questions, but I do have one.
Okay, go ahead.
On your basket weave, the one that has the color on it, the green and the red, what do you use to add color to your platters?
I'm sorry, good
What
question.
do you color with?
Oh, wait, color with? It's a good question. It's a India ink felt tip pen. They're called Fiber Castell. They're an artist pen, and they come in you have one?
No.
They come in different tip sizes, and they call one with a B on it for brush. I use the B, and then the one with the S on it for super fine. So I use the super fine one to do the deep part of the bead. Those are all beads, and then burnt in between each one. There's 144. Actually, for that size of platter, I just figured out there's a little over 11,000 squares on a platter that size. So
Wow.
I've got one at home that I just finished this morning. That's same size as this green one here. So. All right. Well, I don't know how this went. I everybody got things out of it, but
The people that have had to leave wanted to thank you for taking the time and sharing your knowledge and your pieces with everyone. All the comments I can see are positive, so unless nobody sent me a private one.
I guess no news is good news, though. All right. Well, that's it, guys. I don't know what else we got to do, so other than clean up in here. So.
No, just grab your stuff. Okay, guys, give some feedback to the board. Let them know how this worked, whether it's worth doing again. We'd like some feedback also on the cameras, and how they worked out and how we may change them to make them any better. Tried some different things, see how it works. So anyway, give us some feedback. Let us know how it works. And we'll cut it off for now. Go ahead and stop the recording, Joe.